When I was a young journalist, my boss at 3AW in Melbourne, who was one of the best radio news directors of all time, a bloke called Colin Tyrus, said to me, and I've never forgotten this, never write a story that asks more questions than it answers. The Australian public was subjected to the most obscene display of public relations nonsense that I've ever seen from our establishment political class and bureaucrats this week. We were told on Tuesday that the terror threat was to be lifted to probable, that we should be alert but not alarmed. It really was like something out of Brave New World or 1984 or Harry Potter's Ministry of Magic, bumbling government bureaucratic doublespeak of the most Orwellian kind. Here's how Sky News Australia reported it live.
Let's go live now to the Prime Minister. He's joined by the ASIO Director General, Mike Burgess.
Good morning. ASIO has decided to return Australia's national terrorism threat level from possible to probable. My government's first priority is the safety and security of Australians, and this morning I convened a National Security Committee meeting to hear from the Director General, and also then we have just completed a Cabinet meeting.
Oh my God, this sounds terrifying. Possible to probable. What does that mean, Albo? What does it mean?
I want to reassure Australians, probable does not mean inevitable, and it does not mean there is intelligence about an imminent threat or danger.
Phew, okay, we can relax a bit. I'm glad you cleared that up, Albo. Cheers, mate.
But the advice that we've received is that more Australians are embracing a more diverse range of extreme ideologies, and it is our responsibility to be vigilant.
More Australians are embracing a more diverse range of extreme ideologies. What the hell does that mean? That sounds really, really bad. I mean, except for the diversity bit. I mean, diversity is good, right? Anyway, I'm sure he'll get to the specifics shortly.
To be clear, this is the same threat level that was in place in Australia for more than 8 years before it was lowered in November of 2022.
To be clear? Usually when people say to be clear, they follow it up with something that makes things more clear.
At that time, we said as a government, this does not mean that the threat from terrorism is extinguished. Since then, we've seen a global rise in politically motivated violence and extremism.
Oh, well, that's clear. So we're back to the threat level we were at before they lowered the threat level, because since then we've seen a rise in politically motivated extremism. Right. So from who exactly?
There are many things driving this global trend towards violence. Governments around the world are concerned about youth radicalisation, online radicalisation, and the rise of new mixed ideologies.
Okay, so we've got three things to be alert, not alarmed about. Number one, we have youth radicalisation and online radicalisation. Number two, and number three, we have mixed ideologies, whatever they are. I'm sure there are more specifics coming, right? I mean, back to Albo.
As I've spoken about before, the essence and purpose of our democracy is that we can express our views respectfully, engage in disagreements in respectful debate, resolve our grievances peacefully. When the temperature of the security environment is rising, we must lower the temperature of debate, something I've been saying for some time.
Lower the temperature of debate. Wow, that sounds vaguely familiar.
You know, the political record in this country has gotten very heated. It's time to cool it down. We all have a responsibility to do that.
It's time to cool it down. Yes, I remember that one. Funny how the people who've been responsible for injecting into our society all manner of insanities from left-wing lunacy of identity politics are now saying that we should all just calm down. Just calm down and do what we say. Calm down and do what we tell you. Calm down so we can lock you in your homes against your will for a year for a questionably dangerous flu epidemic not really affecting our country that severely. So that we can fine you enormous amounts of money for nothing. so that we can come into your home and arrest your pregnant wife for daring to post something that we don't approve of on Facebook. Also, you must allow us to put cameras everywhere to spy on you, track every transaction you make online, follow the environment, social and governance ESG rules that the United Nations made up that we put in place at work so that you had no say on, and the diversity, equity and inclusion rules that you never got to vote on. You need to accept massive immigration levels too, that we've never seen before, or else you're a racist deplorable. And you need to watch as we put your energy security, national security and economic well-being at enormous risk by turning off our only source of baseload electricity before we've got anything reliable in place to replace it. We're also going to be giving your property rights away to anyone who describes themselves as Indigenous, and we'll create a two-tiered system of citizenship and criminal justice. Now, if you try to complain online about any of this, we'll be introducing new rules to make that an offence too pretty soon. And then, when you finally had enough and hit the streets like they have in England now, we'll just pretend it's all your fault and just the racist violence of a few radical far-right extremist thugs, and pretend it had nothing to do with us trying to run roughshod over your basic rights and the security of your families for decades. Got it? Good.
Our words and our actions matter. Living in a country as stable and open as ours, social cohesion cannot be taken for granted. It must be nourished and it must be cherished as a national asset.
Could not agree more. 110%. Our social cohesion must be nourished and cherished. Except when they tell us that they want to radically change everything that we grew up with and the face of our country from top to bottom. Then we're running roughshod over that social cohesion and you'll just have to suck it up and not protest, okay? Sorry, Albo, but the utter hypocrisy just makes me want to absolutely puke. Can I get you a mirror, mate? Folks, we need to be very, very careful of this whole turn down the heat nonsense. It's one of the main techniques that the Chinese Communist Party use to justify most bad things that they don't want to do. Oh, don't make a fuss. Don't push back, just keep the peace. Let us slowly, slowly take your rights away and you don't do or say anything. Be nice. Be kind. Be nice. Just calm down. There. Let mummy and daddy nanny state look after you. There's a good little boy or girl. Anyway, back to that news conference. I'm sure that after that very vague, confusing and question-creating no answers performance from our esteemed leader, that the head of ASIO, Mike Burgess, will be able to clear everything up for us. Take it away, 007.
More Australians are being radicalised and radicalised more quickly. More Australians are embracing a more diverse range of extreme ideologies, and more Australians are willing to use violence to advance their cause.
Okay, but who exactly? Which Australians? Radicalised how? By who? What extreme ideologies are they embracing? What do you mean when you say a more diverse range of extreme ideologies? What sort of violence are they more willing to use to advance their cause? Tell us. Don't just scare us. Give us details.
In some cases I referred to, the alleged perpetrators appear to be motivated by extreme religious beliefs. In others, nationalist and racist beliefs.
Okay, what kind of religious beliefs? What religion? And what sort of nationalism? What sort of racism are you talking about? So many questions, so few answers. I'm sure the media will sort it all out for us. ABC News was clear that the villain was misinformation and disinformation and technology. Of course it is. It's got nothing to do with any agendas being pushed by the left for more than a decade. It's all because we talk about it online and we dare to criticise the overlords and their power, isn't it? And because the ABC has to compete now with online content like, this show.
The risk of a violent attack here was considered probable. Then, in November 2022, the Albanese government reduced the terror alert level to possible. Now it's being moved back up.
Wow. Okay, well, that's all clear now. Thanks, ABC News, for that scintillating explanation. You can send your graphic design artist back to the play school department now. Are you all clear on that, boys and girls? The threat level was at probable, then it got moved down to possible, now it's back up to probable again. Follow the damn colours, dummies.
A threat level of probable means we assess there is a greater than 50% chance of an onshore attack or planning in the next 12 months.
I want to reassure Australians, probable does not mean inevitable.
Oh my God, I'm so confused. Burgess almost got to a number there. He says there's a greater than 50% chance of an onshore attack. Ooh, but then he said, or planning in the next 12 months. Mate, there's a bloody big difference between an actual attack and planning for an attack. I mean, which is it a 50% chance of? And then Albo chimes in to remind us that nothing is imminent. Now, as you know, I'm a massive skeptic when it comes to conspiracy theories, but I sure think this looks like it's as if they want us to be confused. The Australian's columnist Greg Sheridan agrees. He wrote this week that the announcement was sobering but long overdue, given that they haven't moved the terror threat ranking since the October 7 attacks in Israel last year. He says the government is right to say that the online world is radicalising people faster and more than ever before. Not sure I totally agree with that one, but certainly faster. I think the access to contrary points of view is actually healthy online, and that's been enabled by social media, so I think we should slow down on blaming social media for everything. But it's the algorithms that lock us into groupthink bubbles that are the real problem. It's not the technology itself. But mainstream media people and politicians don't like the competition and their authority being diluted. So they'll always blame the tech for giving ordinary people like you a voice and a platform. We need to be careful of calls to censorship of social media. Sheridan is right when he goes on to say that we need to acknowledge the role of hostile governments in using social media to exacerbate social tensions. That's very true, and it does happen. But his main point is that all of this is obvious, and the government's announcement could have been written any day since October the 7th. So why now? Sheridan writes that he admires Mike Burgess and says Australia's lucky to have him as the Director General of ASIO because he's an outstanding leader and a dedicated servant of Australian security. But, he says, his words in this announcement had that tortured, tenuous, elongated, hangdog quality of civil service sentences when the agencies of government are attempting to accommodate intractable reality to a particular government's perverse political needs. That's a beautiful piece of writing with a lot in it, so let's read it again. His words in this announcement had that tortured, tenuous, elongated, hangdog quality of civil service sentences when the agencies of government are attempting to accommodate intractable reality to a particular government's perverse political needs. Spot on. It was bloody weird. They were trying to say something, but were restrained by political ideology. And that ideology is plainly and simply not wanting to offend Islamist extremism. The ideology that Islam should rule the world, and it's the role of every Muslim to make sure it eventually does. Muhammad before country. It's a difficult conversation to have in a country like ours. We want to be accepting and kind of different religions, and we don't want to be racist or exclusionary of any different cultures in Australia. Particularly on the left side of politics, people hope for a world that's a happy melting pot. That was the idea of multiculturalism when it was brought in the 1970s. Noble, but bloody naive perhaps. As Sheridan notes, the government still seems to be at pains never to mention Islamist extremism, which remains the primary threat of serious terrorism in all Western societies, and in the Middle East, and North Africa, and indeed in Southeast Asia. Then he adds this: there's also a growing threat of right-wing terrorism in Western societies. We'll get into that in our next segment this week about the UK riots. But Greg Sheridan went on to criticise Burgess's mincing of words when he said at the big news conference on Monday that the Gaza conflict was a driver of extremism in Australia, but not a cause of extremism. A driver of factors that led to the increased terror threat level, but not the cause of the increased terror threat level. Sheridan quips that if you can work that one out, there's a career for you as an ASIO cryptographer waiting. The problem with all of this, of course, is that we're not discussing some academic theory about racism and multiculturalism here. We're actually talking about Australia's security. We're talking about your security and your family's security. So this isn't the time for playing politics or ideological political correctness games. It's time that we've got to be honest, direct and blunt, even if it's going to hurt some people's feelings. Politicisation of our national security is simply not okay. And by the way, where was our new Home Affairs Minister, Tony Burke? He wasn't even at the press conference. When it comes to matters of national security, I try to be bipartisan. I want whoever's in government to succeed and I try to support them. But I don't know about you folks. My confidence that we are in any way in competent hands under this government is waning fast. Hope you enjoyed that clip. The Other Side is your weekly analysis of the media's best news and commentary without the woke. And we need your support. Please make sure you subscribe to our channel on YouTube and follow us on X at The Other Side on X. It's all totally free to do that. But we could always do with your financial support too. So if you'd like to make a donation, click the Super Thanks button on YouTube with a little $ and thanks on it right under the video frame below. Even a $2 donation will really help us. And if you're watching on YouTube, do check out the full episode that this clip came from right here.